Okay, we're starting.
Okay. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. So everyone, I want to welcome Peggy Semingson of UT Arlington today as our featured guest to talk about the future of academic publishing. Currently, her research focuses on digital pedagogies and how they engage pre-service and in-service teachers to most effectively help them teach literacy in their current and future classroom contexts, as well as looking at socially distributed knowledge sharing that takes place online and in video-mediated discussion and dialogue. So clearly, we have the right person for the job today.
Yay.
So I'm delighted you agreed to join us.
Yeah.
And again, we have a few questions that are going to guide our discussion today on the future of academic publishing, but feel free to jump in at any time and really see it as a dialogic conversation.
Yeah, I like that.
Not so much as an interview.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So the first question that I want to chat about is, what do you think has changed in terms of academic publishing today from traditional or historical notions of academic publishing?
Okay, awesome. I have some notes, so I'll share. These are just off the top of my head, things I've seen, heard, conversations, and feel free to jump in at any time. Sure. I kind of put them in rank order just because I'm like that. So open access publishing is huge, as you know. People sort of resent having to pay. You write articles, you pay. You have to pay to access your own article, right? And so it's really hard to disseminate knowledge, which isn't that the point of writing and doing research?
Absolutely. And then sometimes publishers think they do you a favor by giving you 25, 30, or 50 downloads, right, for your article, as if you won a prize. So
yeah.
I totally know what you mean there.
Yeah, totally. It's a scam. So people are opening up journals. We have to be real savvy. Some of them are questionable, majorly so. So judging quality with open access is the caveat or double-edged sword.
That's a really good point. I actually have colleagues who are not as adept in terms of making those judgments of evaluation in terms of the merit of a journal, right? So they get an email from somebody in a different country, a different state, a different organization you never heard of that's in Hawaii, and a conference or a paper in this case. It seems like an opportunity to get published because we know we have those pressures on ourselves to get 1, 2, 3 publications a year in many places. And so those pressures oftentimes lead people into perhaps making, not the best decision in terms of where to publish, because as I teach my students, where you publish should be the starting point in terms of your research design, right? So how can you come up with a research study if you don't know where you're going to disseminate it to? Or even how can you write the study after you've done all the research without the readership and the audience in mind? Yeah,
the audience, that's key. I totally agree. They go hand in hand. Yeah, those are great points. I like that. And after I got tenure, I started to really think about meaning. What do I want to study? Where do I want to publish? And meaningful venues are key.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, thanks. Also, you mentioned blogging, and so I just want to mention blogging. Also, what I consider like extended, really long-form blog posts, not just stream of consciousness, but really well-crafted blog posts, can be sometimes cited. So a scholar at our university in ed tech is George Siemens, and he's hugely cited, and some of his most cited papers are almost white papers or almost like extended blog posts. And he'll get quoted and cited just from blog posts. So depending on how big of a scholar you are, you can extend into these other areas. So what do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I know you're probably familiar with the Literacy Beat that's headed up by Bridget Dalton and various colleagues. And I think there's another one that I learned, I think it's like Vocabublog or something like that. And that's another one that, not only do classroom teachers and graduate students go to, but also peers in the field. So having those outlets where you can quickly disseminate information that's very timely, I think is an incredible opportunity that we have today, right?
Yeah, good
so
point.
It's beyond just posting on Facebook or Twitter saying, go check out my new article that's in JAWL that took 1.5 years to get published. It's go check out this research study I just did last week, and I just wrote it up over the weekend.
Right, exactly. That's so great. And then you mentioned too podcasting, and I see you're all set up. That's awesome. But like enhancing with multimedia, so podcasts that a journal editor asked you to do, but it can even be one you do yourself or your own YouTube channel. As you know, I'm a big fan.
You are. I hear you just hit the 1 million minute mark,
not yet.
You're approaching the 1 million minute. That's incredible.
Yeah, I'll have to go out and celebrate.
I'm only about 1 million behind, so I'm pretty close. But that's incredible. I know you're a leader in that field, and it's not jealousy, but I definitely am trying to take points.
You should do that. Get a green screen. Yeah, right. get a green screen. Set it up in your place.
Absolutely.
That's great.
I think along with that, as you know, JAL and these other places are doing the audio interviews and so forth with the authors. They've been doing that the last few years, posting on there. But I think one thing that could be elevated even from that level is doing video snippets to whet people's appetite for reading the article. I think those podcasts from JAW and the like, to me, often it's good to follow up with that after you read the article. Whereas I'm looking for like a video snippet of something to catch a viewer's attention and say, you know what, I want to download that 20-pager. And I want to, sink my teeth into it. I'm
thinking of doing a course trailer for my courses. Like, I know students have to take my class, but I want them to like it. So
absolutely, that's
fantastic. Great. I like that idea of anticipation, and then also just having this digital presence through Twitter. I think mainly Twitter. Yeah, are you on Twitter?
I am. I need to use that one more so now.
Me too.
But yeah, I find that some of the best articles I've come across have just been on, random happenstance through social media. If something catches your attention, you look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I can use that in my class on Thursday.
Just grab it. Yeah, right. Totally. So thought leaders, you can follow influencers. And then I don't use these much, but I know a lot of people are using like ResearchGate and academia.edu. What do you think about this?
I've been using those as well. I think part of the reason there is institutions are all about metrics these days.
Yeah.
And so any way that you can prove that, you have a high citation rate, that people are viewing your articles or your YouTube channels, and anything like that can provide additional evidence to university bureaucrats that sometimes call into question what it is you're doing when you're not teaching.
That impact and influence. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it shows also sort of the academic lineage or the tree from which the tree that's formed from your initial seed of your paper, right? So you can go back and look, what came from schema theory, the original paper, and you see all of these from there, whether if you use Google Scholar or like you said, academia.edu and the like.
Got it. Awesome. I think that's all I had for that. Okay. I think we're still trying to figure this out. This
Absolutely.
Answer. Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift to question number 2, which is, what advice do you have in terms of trying to find additional forums or additional journals for publication beyond those that are affiliated with typically national organizations like the International Literacy Association, the Literacy Research Association, NCTE, ALER, etc.?
Okay, I have like a twofold answer. One is just, I don't know about you, but I'm online a lot.
More often than not.
Yeah, right. Usually on my phone.
I was on the metro train coming here, and I was on the shared Google Doc that you sent me.
Oh yeah.
And you can see you updating it on my phone on a bus in New York. So.
And I was updating it, on my phone. Weird. Those types of things. But I just get on the internet and Google good journals, and so I just kind of I would just call it random Googling for topics, for journals. Sometimes people have curated lists, so I guess other people's curated lists.
I found one actually from Eric, sort of the library reference tool.
And
it was again, I Googled it, I came across it, and it was journals just in the field of education, so it included CNI and TESOL and special ed and the like. And I'm actually embedding that into a class I'm going to be teaching So it's amazing what you can come across through, through these search engines today.
Yeah, and then the other part of that is just, you mentioned Cabels or Cobbles, whatever it is.
Cabels,
Cabels.
Directory.
Yeah.
I don't know when that started exactly. I was familiar with it during, I think, my doctoral program. So it's been around for a while, and the cost of the subscription has increased over time. But many institutions of higher education subscribe to that, and you have access. And if you don't currently have access, maybe you can figure out a way to do so.
Yes.
But those provide that invaluable information regarding acceptance rates and how long the journal has been around in terms of years in publication, as well as sort of target audiences and how many times a year they publish, all those sorts of things that are really relevant.
Yeah, that acceptance rate thing really matters when you're a new scholar.
Absolutely. I have a joke on that. And there's this journal called the Journal of Universal Rejection. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It touts itself on having a 0% acceptance rate.
Oh, that's funny.
And therefore is the, I guess, the most reputable journal in some people's eyes, according to these makers. So as a joke years ago, I sent a paper to this group. And then within a month or two, they send you a reason as to why they didn't accept it.
Oh, that's so funny. It's like masochism or something. Right. That's so funny. I love it. And then you probably do this too, but follow the right people and explore other fields. So as we all know, literacy studies is extremely interdisciplinary, and it's probably intersecting with like literally every single field out there, social science, etc., humanities. And then just exploring different people. So there's somebody, I'll give you just an example, Michael Barber, he's a Canadian and ed tech, and he's like everywhere all over the internet. So I follow him, and he tends to write interesting things, and I just so it's just looking at where those people that you follow are publishing, and then also paying attention to the staying open to interdisciplinary scholars or scholars in related fields. Kind of expands your.
I totally agree, because you can come across a new journal or a related field of yours with some overlap that you had never come across before, just from being open to looking at other scholars' work and even perhaps organizations that you weren't always familiar with.
Right, exactly. So ed tech has been that way for me. So exploring. And then have you ever been part of a mastermind group?
I have not to my knowledge, unless I just tapped in somehow. So tell me more about that.
Well, it's not as scary as it sounds.
Okay.
But it is just people who meet and encourage one another, kind of like a community of practice, but a little more underground and not visible. So in contrast to everything we've been talking about putting yourself out there, it's sort of a self-contained little group where you bounce ideas off of each other, say, have you thought of this? That kind of thing, like a support group, but very career focused.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Is that one that you're a part of with some of the LRA folks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a back channel.
Gotcha.
Basically. Yeah. But they started in business, but we're not corporate.
Gotcha.
But anyway, that's all I have for that, I think. There's hashtags that I think you can follow. Everybody probably knows that. But I'm interested in the future of work, and then kind of thinking back towards what does that mean for education and literacy. Yeah, so I follow that hashtag, and I've learned about new people. Super.
And then I see also listservs is another way that we can perhaps try to find some additional outlets. I know on the LRA listserv, for instance, about maybe 3 weeks ago, Language Arts, the journal Language Arts, sent out a call for manuscripts over 2017, 2018, et cetera, that I shared with my doc students, because if they already know what they're looking to publish in thematic issues, then why not see if somehow you can tap into that with your existing work?
And I've read it's a little easier to get into a thematic issue depending on your niche.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of both. So,
okay.
Maybe it varies. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know either. And then, that's all I have for that. Just kind of follow the right people and keep your open mind. Keep an open mind. Absolutely.
And be proactive. Yeah.
And also, you know, when you attend sessions at conferences and the like, many times they'll say, oh, well, this is going to be published or this was published somewhere, and you might not have been familiar with that forum.
Yeah, it's kind of people planting seeds.
Especially with some of the international organizations we're familiar with.
Good point. Yeah.
The last question that we wanted to look at is, how do you envision the future of academic publishing to look like? And what does that say about what we value in terms of research and expert knowledge? Okay,
yeah. There's something else I wanted to add. Print publications that are published online can also have a lot of hyperlinks in them. So much more hyperlinked text, even within print, I think is coming.
That is true. And using that, right? So not everybody has always used those available links, but I think it's invaluable to really try to maximize our use of those opportunities.
That's great. I just finished up my column year for the Allen Review, and that was one of the things is they have hyperlinks and encourage you to hyperlink the text. So I think we're going to see more of open access publishing. I think, again, it goes back to budgets and finance. It's kind of economically driven. What do you think about
that I actually just I did some homework, I think it was yesterday, and I saw that, for instance, the major TESOL journal, which is called TESOL Quarterly, is shifting this month from being print-based to fully open access. And I think that's a testament to and seconding what you're talking about, that major organizations and longstanding academic journals are making that shift, not only for monetary reasons, but also for access. You know, that idea of open access really resounds with, I think, faculty in general and in the you know, the area of academia, because what we do, we don't want 10 people to read about, we want 10,000 people to read about across 10,000 countries. We want it to have wide readership, and that doesn't necessarily mean graduate students from different colleges in the North Carolina area.
Right, that's too limited. And then this idea of the quantified self, so tracking your views, and, you know, we don't just write sole author, but, you know, tracking the views of your articles and things like that. Tracking alt metrics, which is like, you know, who's reposting the link to your article, who's listening to your podcast.
Absolutely. And then I actually had a radical idea. I don't know if you agree with it.
What?
In some ways, I'm calling into question the written word itself as the primary avenue for publishing. So most people, if you think about it, what do they do in their free time or when they get 5 minutes, you know, to themselves? Maybe they listen to music, they watch movies, etc. Very few say, you know what I want to do? I want to read the next academic article that just came out. And I think these notions provide, you know, some fodder to consider for future conversations on this topic. You know, there is a longstanding tradition of the written word being sort of, you know, the rule of thumb, but that hasn't always been the case with, you know, storytelling, oral discourse, and so on over the years and in different cultures. And I'm sort of debating as to what impact that might have when most things in life are very multimodal and keep our attention better. It's funny because with technology like us, it's all oral. I mean, we're speaking. So it's funny that technology takes us back to the oral component. And just this video podcast won't have too much writing associated with it, but hopefully it'll still be informative nonetheless. Awesome. And those are the main ideas I have. Super. So I mean, I think that wraps up this quick conversation. I really want to thank you so much for joining me today as we talk about the future of academic publishing, and hopefully there'll be some more opportunities for us to do the same thing. Sure. Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Evan. Thank you so much, Peggy, and take care. Have a good one.